Amol Vishesh, thank you so much for joining me on Bollywood Film Fame Canada. Congratulations on Cash. I have yet to watch it. It's on my list of movies to watch. I have read all of the reviews. They're good reviews, but I think I was expecting good reviews because the trailer was very promising. I think the trailer had just the right amount of hiccups, just the right amount of humor, and just the right amount of sort of dramedy. People talk about the fact that if you want to have a good comedy, you want to have good humor, you need to actually focus on the tragedy of the situation of what's happened. And obviously you've taken a situation which in real life marked a very uncertain time for a lot of people in India. I know that you have previously spoken about, what that period was like for the two of you. And specifically, for Amol, for example, you said like you didn't really have cash lying around, so it was okay for you guys, right? But still, it marked a very uncertain time. What do you remember the feeling you had when you first heard about it? Just the feeling when you first heard about it, because I think that everyone has sort of said, like, I guess it turned out okay, but what was the feeling like when you first heard, oh, like this is going to happen, demonetization is the thing now?
I think the most initial reaction that I can remember, I guess, was of surprise and of curiosity, because first of all, I had never heard this word before in my life. I think very few of us even knew that this term existed and that this is what it meant. Of course, when we found out later, historically, we found out that this has existed, this concept has existed and probably has happened before in the world. But till 8th November 2016, I had never heard that word and I didn't even know what it meant. So when suddenly started people's phones started ringing and news started to come in and everybody started talking about demonetization. Ho gaya, so I was like, kya ho gaya? You don't know. Kyun hua kya hai? What does this exactly mean? And then the attempt to understand what exactly this means practically for all our lives, and what do I need to do now? Like, what is my part in this script that is going to unfold now? So I think the initial first few hours were definitely uncertain, confusing. There's a lot of curiosity about trying to understand the very idea of this move, and then of course the idea behind announcing this move. There's a lot of discussion and debate, and some people were celebrating it, some people were a little not very happy about this sudden move without any warning to the public. So I guess this is kind of trying to figure out. There was a lot of curiosity in me. Like I did figure out pretty early that probably it's not going to affect me very much, and this is directed towards people who have a lot of cash or who deal in cash. So I knew that probably personally I was not going to be as affected. Of course, then we figured out that some of us will have to stand in ATM queues because that there is no cash available. But I think that happened later. Initially, it was communicated that it's not going to be trouble for anyone but people who have black money. But then we realized that probably all of us were going to get affected in one way or another. Yeah.
Vishesh, for you?
Same, yeah. I think what Amol just said, that I think demonetization in the word none of us had ever used or experienced. We didn't know what it meant. So I think when it came about, it was more about like, okay, this is what demonetization means. Like it's the currency that you had. I mean, it was just bizarre because we didn't expect that the money that you have in your wallet could be cancelled and it would be zero. Yeah, it would be cancelled, and it would mean like it would just become a piece of paper. And that is how the PM's speech went. So to the point, I remember saying that this was just post Diwali and everything. So we have like grandparents who've given us like, those token gifts of like 500,000 rupee notes, and it's still there in the envelopes and stuff like that. You could still probably find them somewhere. But like you said that, okay, so what they've given or what this means nothing. And then, literally taking the 1,000 rupees note and looking at the written text on it saying, I promise to pay the bearer the sum of 1,000 rupees signed by the RBI governor. They're like, what happens to that promise? Like
Right.
one speech is just like changed it all. Like, so it was, I think it seemed like very unreal. I remember that even later in the night, that night, I guess everyone was just awake in the country. People were trying to figure out, okay, now this money is gone. Where is the other money going to come? And then there was information coming out slowly that it's going to come in the ATMs, but there's only going to be a small amount. Today, we are living in a cashless economy. I mean, it kind of catapulted the whole thing into a cashless economy, but which helped in the pandemic. Now we had like easy deliveries and, doing everything during the pandemic, no sanitizing. But at that point, we had to use a lot of cash for basic transactions. And I, from what I remember is, and for a lot of us, is that the first few days people were just like, if you stepping out of your house means you have to spend money, right, for something to get into, no Ubers, no this thing, right? You don't have, and especially in India, I think the credit card transactions now have become huge in volume. They're accepted at more places, but it was literally like I think the first few weeks and all, people were just sitting at home and trying to figure out wherever they could get things from their regular store or anything based on like signing some piece of paper and saying, I owe you, and, maybe giving him monopoly money for all that matters. But so it was kind of a strange situation. And I think this story was approached actually more from the point of view of a startup entrepreneur. Because India was also was entering that phase. And even now through the pandemic, you hear all these unicorns that have come in, names that you've never heard are now worth $1 billion and above. That was, I think that whole thing was like unknown around that time. And so even the challenges of what a startup entrepreneur was complicated. And Amol has a line in the film where he says, I want to be Elon Musk. That also comes from because there's an element of being eccentric if you're a startup entrepreneur and you have these aspirations of literally you want to fly to space. And then when your targets and your ambitions are so high and getting stacked up against you, we wanted to represent to the Indian entrepreneur here, that the challenges of being a startup entrepreneur or any entrepreneur in a developing country is, and then and we are like, how do we raise the stakes? And then you get demonetization on top of that, and it becomes so out of reach that it made us laugh instantly when we put these two things together. So it was that giggle and that laughter that we got very naturally out of it, is that we said that we'll write and make a script. Rishabh and me and Arsh, who's the writer as well, said that we'll make a universe and this journey through this phase, and literally those 30-40 days of demonetization.
And going off of what you just said, the relatability component of Amol, you're a character. This is a guy who's sort of like young and energetic, and he wants to thrive and survive, and not just survive, but like hit all of his aspirations. Let's talk about the relatability of sort of the young millennial, the Gen Zs, if you will. They've gone through a lot. They've gone through the pandemic, they've gone through demonetization, they've gone through the boom of social media. Tell me a little bit about the relatability of the character that you're playing, Amol, and the character that's been written, Vishesh, and the importance of making sure that the Gen Zers, the millennials, even people outside of India like myself who didn't actually directly experience demonetization, I can still watch this and say, man, like this guy is speaking my language. What was the importance of making sure you do that with the character?
I think that generally happens if something is well written.
Hmm.
It's easy to connect because at the end of the day, there are only as many emotions and feelings, and watching them unfold on screen. If you understand the feeling in that in of that character in that situation, it makes for a good watch. You watch a lot of films uh, about stuff that has never happened to us. We've seen films about aliens. I've never seen an alien, but somehow you enjoy those films because
Right.
you understand. Yeah, if that were to happen to me, maybe this is how how I would feel or how I would
Hmm.
react. So you find something. Now there is an inherent what Vishesh was saying. There's an inherent relatability to this person specifically to the times that we are living in a country like India, because I have personally seen over the last 10-12 years the boom of the startup culture. And I would call it an evolving culture because I was I studied engineering, for example. I went to an institution where a lot of startups are born. A lot of my friends and batchmates and seniors and juniors eventually are running their own companies right now as
Hmm.
we speak. So I saw it when it was a new thing, when it was still a risk. Only a few people were doing it. And then over the next 4 5 years, how it kind of became the mainstream choice. Even families and youngsters, that became almost like the first choice, that I'm going to join a startup or I'm going to start my own company. Initially, it was a little um, out of the way. Like there was some risk factor involved. But because the economy grew, the money started to flow in, then people started to see all these companies growing and becoming unicorn, and people getting rich is what you see from the outside. You probably don't see all the hard work that goes into it, but you do see as an outsider how the valuation of the company has gone up, and this person, 2 years, his bank balance has become this, and this is the stock market, this thing, and IPO is coming out. So all this has led to a lot of young people now not dreaming of a cushy job in a big corporate, but rather dreaming of owning a company, or running a company,
Hmm.
and being the CEO of that company, and that became the cool thing to do in the last 8-10 years in India. And this boy represents that section of the youth, which is I believe a big section of the youth, even people who are, I guess, for whatever reasons, working for large corporates, they somewhere hold this dream, whether practical or not, of having their own startup and maybe making it big in the world of startups, and the kind of fame and money and recognition that it gives you, which probably going to work every day for a large corporate doesn't give you. Nobody knows who you are. You might be making decent money, but I think this glamour, there is a glamour attached to startups suddenly in our country, and I think this boy in this script represents that. Of course, it's a little more exaggerated for the sake of humor, because that's the tone of the film. Because he's so passionate, he's so this thing that he just eats, sleeps, and drinks startup ideas,
Right.
and doesn't think of anything else but that. But it is relatable because probably people have felt this in some day or another, or they have seen people who are so who are so attached to that dream of
Mhm.
coming up with the next big idea and getting funding and making a big company and becoming a billionaire, and then launching an IPO, and then taking a rocket into space, and just they have become somewhere, they've become celebrities. Elon Musk is a celebrity in his
Oh,
own way. People want to become Shah Rukh Khan. People want to become Elon Musk because that's the kind of life they lead, and that's the kind of impression they leave.
mhm.
So I guess that makes it very relatable. On top of that, you add something like demonetization, which I believe is even more relatable than a character like that, because this character, let's say, is relatable to the youth or some people who've kind of exposed to the startup culture. But demonetization is like an earthquake that everybody in this country experienced.
Right.
So whether how much they were affected by it, or good or bad ways, that could be different, but nobody was untouched, or nobody nobody in this country will say, what demonetization? I don't remember.
Right.
You will never get a reaction like that from anyone in this country. So by that nature, this is probably the most brilliant, most relatable thing you could think of, because any topic, any situation you come up with or think of will be relatable to some people, or at least they can say, oh, I've experienced this, and other
Right.
people will just watch as outsiders. But this is something that everybody has experienced, which is why I think, and it's been some time. So even if there was trouble and there was suffering, and I do believe that there was, but it makes it easy now, 5 years later, to look back and probably laugh at some of those things, and and just relive those, but in a slightly more detached, humorous way.
So I would say something funny to this point is that actually, when we set up to make this film, I personally was, I've been working for many years. I've had made many films, but I'm part of a family company, which is, has its own audience base, to say, its franchises and its various narratives that people relate to. So I thought that, there are ways, there are stories, there's treatment, but there's a point of view. Sorry, being a millennial myself, and Gen Z point of view in urban or global. I think the global community of what you specifically said is of it doesn't matter beyond a point in which country you are or which city you are. They started uniting because of social media. It's the millennials and Gen Z have they're more woke. They have a certain set of moral values. It doesn't have to be that they're that woke. They go into the cancel culture and start trolling from that point. But but there is a newer, you would say, a traditional shift that is happening, and it's supposed to happen, where we see things, the same thing, a little differently. We have a different sensitivity to those narratives. Now, there is a committed audience base. Like Disney has a Disney Mickey Mouse,
Right.
audience base. And we said that, when we try attempting things from that audience base, there are certain expectations, certain audiences come with that. And they would probably not relate to us saying the narrative the way we want to say it.
Right.
So the journey of making this film, all in all, is a startup in itself, with the people who had like similar kind of maybe age groups, make it similar values, and starting up with a newer brand gave us the vehicle to say it, from that perspective. And I, like you exactly said, even the pandemic, exactly. I think the everyone will have a point of view in the pandemic, but I think my mission with this new banner or this thing is to say these events from the point of view of us, like us in the sense, because I'm millennial and Gen Z, and so because today there's only so much, if you're making a film or a series, that you can give the perspective of. So at least we can give the point of view of this event from what our struggles are. I mean, if you have a Greta coming in and talking about climate change, it's important. Like, I mean, there are the traditional politicians, but you need someone of even that age group, or Malala coming from her this thing, to say, hey, we have a future. We have our skin in the game. The stakes are larger for us, and our voices are like softer because we are young.
But so much more impactful.
Yeah, and I think more than a business perspective, that we want our foot in the door. We want our seat at the table to be able to talk about our things. And I think, and a small aspect is probably, as since you noticed, and thank you for the opening part where you were describing the film and the trailer of it, is that if you will go to the film, there will be these small aspects that we've brought in, which will connect, or you'll say that there's a sensitivity to certain things. There's a part in the trailer, it's in the film, where how we are calling domestic help. We are trying to, like, I always believe we are trying to push the envelope from the mainstream, change the popular culture. I like art house cinema. I personally consume a lot of it, But as filmmakers and creative people, we want to say that how do we change the main narrative, right? So I think in a film like this, with comedy as a vehicle, there are these small things. I think Amol is very open, and it was very easy. We didn't have to explain the stuff that we've been discussing right now. We didn't have to explain to each other, because there is Smriti's character, who is a female lead, but in this film, when you go through the film, you see it's a subtle thing, but she is often the alpha in the room.
Right.
And that was, I think, normally many people or traditional or older audiences would not even like notice it. But I know for some of our audiences and people, millennials or Gen Z, there are people or girls themselves have come back and said, oh, you know what? You have done something like this. They've appreciated it. And Amol is taking it the way it is. He's also not being charitable or mansplaining. In fact, she's doing the reverse and everything.
Well, she's taking command of a room.
She's taking command of the room. She's getting the things done. She is even more resourceful in her connections or getting the stuff fixed at times. And those are the kind of, even giving that kind of shift to the protagonist. The protagonist can be vulnerable. I'm just saying something like that. And we want to put that, and Amol plays it naturally. It's not something that he has to, because he gets it. He gets it, and that makes it relatable, right? So I think those aspects have come through to this film, is connecting through it, but we needed a startup kind of a banner to do it. We had our own pandemic, which this film had to deal with on a thing. I had to put in my own money to make this film, get it there. But it is very satisfying when it gets its due credit.
No, certainly. I know we're running a bit short on time, so I guess I'll do a wrap-up question. One of the things I definitely want to say to you guys is, it seems as though the film is a good package. Good music. I've listened to it. I've watched the songs as well. I really enjoying Arijit Singh, obviously, as do most people in India probably, and globally. But also, as I said, the humor is well placed. And as you said, there's certain nuances in the film that you may not necessarily catch unless you're in our generation, where, for example, like, I'm hungry for women to, speak up a little bit more. I'm hungry for women to, take center stage without it being so in our faces that we're taking center stage. Why does it need to be in our faces? We take center stage all the time. Hopefully,
right?
Hopefully we
exactly.
do.
Yeah.
And what's the big deal, right? So like, we don't need to make a big hoopla about it. Tell me, for the two of you specifically, in one sentence or one word, how you would describe your favorite aspect of the film. So one, describing your favorite aspect of the film, and two, a word to describe the film experience completely.
I think we set out to make a funny film that we can't deny. I mean, the first thing is to make people laugh. But what I loved about when I read the script, and the fact that all of us were on board with the humor of the script and what we tried to execute, is I've always felt that the script and the humor, and it comes from everyone who, especially Vishesh, Rishabh, and Arsh, who worked on the script, that it's smart, it's witty, and it's progressive, without making a hoopla about it.
Yeah.
Without
honestly,
saying, look how smart we are, look how progressive we are. But it manages to do that naturally. And that was my initial reaction when I read the script, because I will be honest, you don't get to read stuff like that all the time. No. Sometimes you're like, okay, this may be funny for some people, but it's not funny for me. But this was funny for me. I laughed out loud and many things, and consistently so. And I think that is what eventually, of course, does work, because that's the spine, that's the knee on which the film is based, the script.
Right.
And I think it's smart, witty, and progressive without making any airs about it.
You won't feel you're missing out on those kind of, hopefully you don't feel, and at least the audience you're talking to won't feel like missing out on. Like Amol actually pointed out what I said about this beta male thing in another interview, but he also pointed out this other aspect that he noticed. Sometimes it's your own work you're doing naturally, but like Amol reading the script with us, the Rishabh and everything, and even later now speaking about it, is that what his takeaways have been. Like, for example, he said something like, there is no body shaming humor, you know. I mean, the fact is that it's so typical and it kind of a cliche in all international content and Indian content as well.
And it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
And the fact that, you know, I'll be very honest about it, and people can give accidental credit, but that it comes somewhere from, you know, kind of the true values that we kind of want to represent. We are not trying to, that's why there's no hookah about it, is because this is what we feel is right. We've not gone out to now also cater to an audience who will say, oh, how woke this film is, this is doing that. This is that it comes in its natural form and its innocent form, and it's trying to represent something. And it does not amuse us. And we have other things to say which are more entertaining. So, you know, we try to put that there, and as actors, obviously it's been appreciated, and the way audience is seeing it that way, I think that's very nice.
Yeah. No, I agree. One of the things that has really bothered me, and this will sort of be the wrap up for me to say to you, that I'm really looking forward to actually watching this. It's on my list of films to watch this week, and looking forward to much more after this conversation, because, you know, humor can be so ill-placed. And as you said, I mean, body shaming is one of the core ways in how, you know, stand-up comics, but largely popular culture, popular media derives humor by making fun of the way people look. And I'm looking forward to fresh humor. And I think that's what I saw in the trailer. That's what I've seen in the tidbits that I've seen so far. So looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Vishesh. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know
I
that
the first few minutes, I was just getting done with another call, and sorry that I joined in late.
Oh, no worries at all. But thank you so much for your time. I know it's been a long day already for the two of you, so I'm hopeful that you'll have a good rest of the day and maybe get some rest. Take care, both of you.
Thank you. Please watch it.
Thank you, Arvind. Yeah,
I will 100%.